as McKinnon added one more hat trick to his season goal total, and the Buffalo Sabres came just one win away from making the playoffs. We now have the NHL's 2023 playoff bracket set. We're going to briefly cover that today. I'm going to give my early, very short thoughts, but if you guys want a full breakdown of any specific series before things get started on Monday, please let me know. As a note, we are doing a bracket challenge on the channel. Initially, I said it was going to be Office Pool Junkie. It's actually going to be NHL.com. So far, we've got 1,000 people signed up. The winner will get an NHL jersey. If for some reason you want me to sign it, I'll do that, but I also don't have to. If we get to 2,000, I'll add another prize. Anyway, let's talk playoffs. So, starting in the West, we have, for the first time in NHL history, the Seattle Kraken making the playoffs, and we're throwing them right in against defending Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche. Even without Landeskog, we know the Avalanche are hot right now. This is a series I think they have. Next in the West, Dallas, Minnesota. Dallas, in my opinion, has really been overachieving this year. Very exciting team to watch with young Robertson, and I'm excited to see if the Otter can reclaim some of that playoff magic from last year. The other recent expansion team is back as well, Vegas. They, of course, missed the playoffs last year, but have a history of playoff success. In their first season, they actually played Winnipeg, and Vegas won in 5 games to go on to the Stanley Cup final. In a rematch of last year's round 1 matchup, we have Edmonton once again playing LA. This should be very interesting. Last year, I thought Edmonton had this one on lock, and if you're new to hockey, you are about to see just how different things get in the playoffs. Skill can really be interfered with as physicality and honestly energy come to dominate. Everything looks so simple on paper. The second you watch your first NHL playoff game, you'll realize that all means nothing. Going over to the East, first off, we have Boston and Florida. These are two very different teams. Boston, somewhat methodical, all around really talented. Florida, still this year, a bit run and gun. Speaking of that, in their next matchup, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning, another repeat from last year. I bring up Hart because Tampa's missing a lot of their team, including Palat and one of my favorite players, Ryan McDonough. McDonough, who's now on Nashville, is like a postseason king. He puts everything on the line, is just an absolute monster. The Leafs have their own playoff beast though, as Ryan O'Reilly was a late season addition, and I'm very curious to see how he factors into the playoffs. Not only will he bring that physicality, but he's a former Stanley Cup winner with the St. Louis Blues. With other players like Matthews now focusing a bit more on defense and other acquisitions by the Maple Leafs, I actually think this is finally the season that they make it to the second round. But who am I kidding? We'll have to see. Next up, we have Carolina versus the New York Islanders. I saw somebody write that this series is like if someone made in a lab the most boring hockey series possible, and I tend to agree. The Islanders, however, are scary. Goaltending in the playoffs can be absolutely everything. I saw Henrik Lundqvist carry so many subpar Rangers teams to the conference finals or beyond. Last year, we saw Ottinger almost do the same for Dallas against the Flames. Ilya Sorokin is easily one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. That's the one matchup, if I were a Boston fan, I was really not hoping that they'd get. Carolina, though, I don't know. I'm curious to see how they perform in the playoffs. I'm glad the Rangers weren't playing them, and that takes us to our final matchup, the Rangers against New Jersey. This is an interesting one. The Devils have been somewhat streaky this year, at times very, very good, a few slower parts of the year, but I mean, the same can be said of the Rangers. It feels like they haven't really been firing on full cylinders yet. Kane has been good, but not amazing. But I'm also guessing there was a little bit of fatigue from just being locked into the playoffs for so long and many of these games feeling a bit meaningless. Even as a Rangers fan, one of the things I'm most interested about is to see how this young Devils team fares in the playoffs, especially Jack Hughes. He had an incredible year this year, 99 points in 78 games. He's lived up to his first overall draft pick status. But like I said, things are just different in the playoffs, and the Rangers have a ton of playoff experience. This core went far last year, and they've added Tarasenko and Kane, Stanley Cup winners. So I'm curious to see how this turns out. I will, I think, be doing a full bracket at some point, just to give you guys my thoughts. I may also bring Brandon on, who does some of the writing and editing for this channel, to give his bracket as well. But I'm going to remind you guys, make sure you join our bracket challenge down in the description. It's really fun. In the first rounds, you also choose how many games you think each series will go. Then for the Stanley Cup final as a tiebreaker, you guess the total goals scored in the series. I'll just say, I don't think anyone can beat Boston 4 times in 7 games this year. I have them winning the cup, but let me know what you guys think on this and more down below.